You have to respect the sea. Those were words that a wise Israelite would have made sure to live by, because the sea, those chaotic, swirling waters, those represented danger and death and evil to the Israelites. No human being, no mere mortal could tame those waters. Only God himself could master the dark, swirling chaos of those waters. And so as the disciples set out in their boats that day on the Sea of Galilee, and remember, they were without Jesus that day. That's an important detail. As the disciples set out, they had a very healthy respect, probably even a very healthy fear of the waters, because chaotic waters were part of the history of Israel. From the very beginning, you have to remember God creating the world. He has to bring those chaotic waters into order. He separates, he's got the sky and then the waters, and then he can go forward with the rest of creation. But then think about some of the events that happen after that. We go to the story of Noah and the ark. The whole earth is flooded. And so Noah and his family have to pile into this ark with all these animals, and God rescues them. But that's a pretty scary story to pass on. You were talking about water. Oh yeah, it reminds me of this Noah story. And then fast forward to Israel in Egypt. They're in slavery. God rescues them. They're homeward, they're home free. They're leaving, and then boom, there's the Red Sea right in front of them. And they turn around, and there is Pharaoh's army coming. And so this water in front of them meant certain death. We know God saved them, but still, you can see why the disciples would have some baggage because of these events in their history. And you can forgive the disciples if anytime they piled into a boat, images of these aquatic dangers from the past streamed into their minds uninvited. Now you're thinking, well, some of the disciples were fishermen, right? So they were probably very comfortable out there in the waters. They'd been out there in the Sea of Galilee more times than they could count. But because of this feeling about the waters, they were never 100% comfortable. They were never absolutely calm when they went out in the boat. And so you can imagine on this day, or really whenever an Israelite went out on the water, you can imagine that there were some white-knuckled hands gripping the side of the boat. You can imagine some nervous tension in the neck as they just kind of can't totally relax. You can imagine them fearfully glancing up at the sky and looking for signs of a storm rolling in. Every Israelite knew someone who had had a close brush with death out there in the waters, and everyone knew someone that didn't make it back. And so, to put it simply, the chaotic waters were one of the scariest things in the world for an Israelite. They were uncontrollable, they were untamable, they were usually avoidable, but not on this day, as they just hoped and prayed that the danger would remain far away and that they would just make it across, safe and sound, across the Sea of Galilee. Now, maybe water's not scary to you. In fact, it's probably not very scary. A lot of us probably love the water, especially in the summertime, going to the pool, going out in the lake. It's nice, it's fun. Maybe that's not scary, but something, I guarantee something is scary to you. And so I ask you to think about, what are you afraid of? What is it that is scary to you? Now, I asked the same question on Facebook last week, and boy, I was not disappointed by the responses that I got. This was just wonderful. And I got answers in a broad range of answers. I got things that were pretty silly, that made me laugh. And then I got some very deadly serious things that we're afraid of. And then just everything in the middle too. So I want to list off a few things that we are afraid of, and I want to apologize in advance for the nightmares. I don't want to have a bunch of voicemails on my phone, you know, calling me at 3 in the morning. Pastor, I had a nightmare. So I apologize in advance, but here are some things that we're scared of. Snakes, spiders, cockroaches, and birds, for good measure. Okay, so got some of those maybe are something that you're not so thrilled about. Heights is another one. The dark. Yeah, you guys could admit it too. I know, the dark. You walk a little bit faster through the dark hall. Tornadoes and earthquakes, other things that came up. Now, this is where the answers took a little bit of a turn. Clowns. Several people said clowns. One person said clowns, but specifically Ronald McDonald. I have not heard that one before. Another person said the Joker from Batman, but not just any Joker, specifically the Jack Nicholson version is the scary one, I guess. Earwigs. And last but not least, and I think whoever responded this way probably raised kids in the late 90s, Teletubbies. Do not, if you don't know what a Teletubby is, do not Google that right before you go to bed tonight. Do it with all the lights on, and then you'll be okay. Now, I could have listed dozens more things that we're afraid of. Now, most of these things, we're going to get to some other things in a little bit, but most of the things that I've listed off so far, these are things that they don't tend to affect our lives on a daily basis. These are fears that are kind of out there somewhere, and we can look at them and we can kind of keep a safe distance away. I mean, most of us, I think, most of us don't encounter a snake every day or a clown every day or some type of natural disaster or a destructive weather force every day. These are things that we can look at over there and we can say, I see you, you don't come any further, not today. I feel relatively safe. They're out there somewhere. So back to the disciples now. They're out there in the water. Things are going fine. They're about as relaxed and calm as they could be on the water. They're talking about what happened that day. They know that they're going to have to sail through the night, so they're starting to play rock, paper, scissors to see, okay, who gets to nap first and who has to stay up and what time, and who's going to draw the best time to nap. And so, things are relatively calm. And then all of a sudden, it changed. All of a sudden, the wind picked up, and the waves got real choppy, and it seemed as if the water, and then consequently the boat, they each had minds of their own. The disciples' worst fear had stormed its way right into their lives, and they felt very human all of a sudden, very small, very powerless. This might be the night when those dangerous waters finally sought to destroy them. And they thought, where was Jesus? They thought, where was Jesus when we need him the most? Well, sooner or later, this happens to us too, right? Sooner or later in your life, there are fears that go from being out there somewhere to being right here. Things that we've been dreading, things that we are very scared of, things that scare us to our very soul come into our lives and they affect us personally and powerfully, and we become terrified. Things like failure. That's one thing that maybe scares us. We work so hard and so long for something, and then it just comes crumbling down all of a sudden. Poof, it's gone, and we don't know what the next step is. We don't know what to do, and we become fearful about what the future holds. Other things that scare us, things like a big decision to make, especially like a big financial decision. You're kind of maybe at a crossroads, and you're thinking, okay, I don't know what the right thing to do is. I could do this, or I could do this, and I don't know how is this going to affect my family in 5 years, or how's this going to affect my kids? How's this going to affect things after I'm gone? And you just become crippled with that fear about what to do, and it's scary. We get scared about the direction that our country or our world is heading. We wonder, which way is the political seesaw going to sway next? And how's it going to affect me? How's it going to affect people I care about? Well, we see the increasing hatred and the violence throughout the world, and we get scared, and we wonder, when is that going to come onto my doorstep and affect my life? And we're fearful. And then we get fearful about, we went to the doctor, and we had this medical test done, and then we're back at home the next week. We're waiting on pins and needles for the doctor to call with the results, and we're just dreading. We're dreading what they're going to say. Are they going to say what I fear? Are they going to say that it is cancer? Is my best friend going to call me up and say, oh, I just found out I've only got a few months left? And I think this is one of the scariest things. One of the scariest things in life is we're afraid that we're going to lose the people that we love and care about. We're afraid that we're going to lose our kids, that they're going to get hurt. You know, we worry when our kids, maybe they're teenagers, a little bit older, and they don't call us in time. They don't come home on time, and we start to worry. Your imagination runs wild, and you just start to worry about your kids, how their lives are going to turn out. Are they going to have a good life? Are they going to follow what you taught them? Are they going to be okay? I don't want to lose them. I don't want to lose my spouse. I don't want to lose my parents. I don't want to lose these people that I care about. And then you start to worry, well, what if something happens to me? Because are the people that depend on me, are the people that rely on me, are they going to be okay after I'm gone? And in the midst of all of this fear and all this chaos that this fear brings into our lives, we wonder, where is Jesus? I've thought that before, and I know you've thought it too. Where is Jesus when you need him the most? We left the disciples in a pretty scary situation. Let's check back in with them. They're on the Sea of Galilee. It's a dark and stormy night. And just as suddenly as the storm picked up, all of a sudden they see this figure out there in the distance. And not just any figure. This figure is walking on the water. And their first reaction naturally is, it's a ghost! So just imagine this scene. It's the scariest thing that's gone on in your life so far. You're out in the middle of the stormy sea. You think you might die, and then you see a ghost walking on the water. But then they start to think, you know what? We know that from the Bible, from the book of Job, it says that only the Lord can trample on the waves of the sea. So that must be God. Is that Jesus? Could Jesus be the Son of God? Only God can save us from the water, from the terrifying waves. Only God can save. The same God who saved Noah and his family, the same God who rescued Israel from the Red Sea. I know he can save us, but will he? I mean, he's way over there. When we are surrounded by our greatest fears, we know that Jesus is bigger. We know that Jesus can rescue us, that he can tame them, that he can take the fear away. But sometimes when our fears are so close to us, Jesus seems so far away. We know that he's able to save us, but we can't help but wonder, will he? Our fears are right here, but it seems like Jesus is way out there. On that dark and stormy night, 2,000 years ago, the Son of God walked on top of the chaotic, crashing waves. And he kept walking closer and closer to the disciples as they were terrified. Jesus, who before had seemed so far removed from the situation, who had seemed just so other, so different, so out there, now he comes right into the midst of their fears, and Jesus steps into the boat and he says, I'm here. Don't be afraid. I'm here. Don't be afraid. And as soon as Jesus stepped into the boat, the Sea of Galilee and the wind and the waves, they knew that their master was present. And they fell back in line and were calm again. they were orderly again. Jesus stepped into the very center of his disciples' nightmare, and he took their fears away. He made them safe. He made everything right again. He brought peace back into their lives. So I ask you again, what is it that you're afraid of? What is it that is just robbing you of the peace and the calm that you desire in your life? Whatever it is, Jesus is right there with you. Jesus is right there in the midst of your fears. He is the almighty Son of God, the Lord of the universe, controlling all things, and yet still, at the same time, he comes into life's boat with you. He comes into the boat, comes into the midst of what scares you the most, and he brings that calm and that peace. He says, I'm here. Don't be afraid. I will rescue you from your greatest fears. You know, it was another wooden structure that Jesus went to. He went to the wooden boat to save his disciples that day, but it was another wooden structure. He went to the cross to rescue you and me from the most chaotic, the scariest things in the world. He died and saved us from sin, from the power of the devil, from death. And Jesus has now taken those chaotic, dangerous waters, and he has made them a life-giving stream. We had a baptism earlier. Little Cyrus Henry Tomei, he was brought to new life through the waters of baptism. And just like little Cyrus, you and I have been crucified. We have died with Jesus in the waters, but we've been raised up to new life. A new life full of peace that Jesus has given to us. Now, I'm not going to stand here and tell you, because you would know that I was lying, I'm not going to stand here and tell you that because we're followers of Jesus, because we're Christians, nothing scary is ever going to happen to us in our lives. You've already lived long enough to know that that's not true. There are still fears around us, and they are scary. But Jesus tells us, don't keep staring at the scary stuff. He says again, I'm here. Don't be afraid. Look at me. Fix your eyes on me and know that I will bring you peace and I will rescue you. Because when you're scared, it's all about who's with you. And Jesus is the one who's with you in the midst of all your fears. So what are you afraid of? Jesus is here. In his name, amen.